Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
Now pushing the limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
All right, what's happening, everybody? It is Pushing the Limits. Thank you so much for joining us on a very busy news day. That's right, a Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Donald Trump hush money trial. He just recently made some statements outside the courtroom. We're going to be getting to that. Plenty more to get to as well. You could be listening on the FM AM dial, of course, KSHP. You could also be watching us on the Occupy Democrats Network, Washington Press Network, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube. So we appreciate you being a part of the show. Thank you all for joining us. And we're going to be joined here in just a few minutes by Carmine Sabia, who is a conservative political pundit, making the case, as so many MAGA Republicans are, that this is, a nonsense trial and that it's all Joe Biden and a two-tier justice system. Well, we're going to get into it with him in just a few minutes here. If you recall last week, I did an interview with, I think it's fair to label him as a controversial doctor, Dr. Peter McCullough, who is very anti-vaccine. Yeah, he did an interview that went viral with Joe Rogan. The interview I did with him went viral. I mean, they were talking about it everywhere on social media. So a lot of mistruths, at least in my estimation, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical expert. So I said, let's get a medical expert on to talk about this interview I did with Peter McCullough, because I believe he said a lot of things that are just not true. So Dr. Brian Labus, professor at the UNLV School of Public Health, specializes in epidemiology. He listened to the interview. He's going to discuss at least where we think, or where he thinks Dr. Peter McCullough was wrong about vaccines. So he's going to be joining us in hour number 2 as well. And as I mentioned, we have a lot to get to and a lot to talk about. So as you know, the Donald Trump hush money trial, this guy Pecker has been testifying, and I believe this was the second day that he was on the stand. And I think this is really, really important to distinguish here, because Pecker has made it very, very clear that this entire operation that he's answering questions about on the stand, the entire operation was about Trump's campaign for president. This wasn't about protecting his family. This wasn't about protecting Melania Trump or his brand. The whole thing was about winning the 2016 election, which, by the way, he did. And I find it so mesmerizing and so interesting that it's Donald Trump that talks about fake news. It's Donald Trump that talks about election interference when he was the one doing the election interference. He was the one. Nobody else. He was the one. He came up with this fake news narrative. And, prosecutors in their opening statements have said that Donald Trump schemed to corrupt the 2016 presidential election. Now, of course, the defense in the Donald Trump case, claiming that he's completely innocent. But as this tabloid publisher has been testifying, it's abundantly clear. So what is election interference? Well, for those of you that disagree with me, I'll make it clear to you. Hush money payments made weeks before the presidential election. Why? Not because he was protecting his family, not because he was protecting his kids or Melania Trump. I mean, Pecker's already testified to that. This was about specifically the 2016 presidential election and winning. And how do we know that? Well, a couple of these hush money payments, including the doorman and another individual, were let out of those agreements after Donald Trump won the presidential election. So that pretty much says it right there. This was about winning the 2016 election. Donald Trump didn't care about his family. Donald Trump didn't care about his family at all. Donald Trump only cared about one thing: winning the 2016 election. That's what this came down to. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the defense to say that that's not true. And all these witnesses that are testifying, of course, we're starting with Pecker. Michael Cohen's going to testify. Stormy Daniels is going to testify. McDougal is going to testify. Who's the defense going to put up there to testify? Eric and Donald Trump Jr.? So I think there's a huge problem there. Now, as far as the gag order, Donald Trump has repeatedly gone after the judge. He even made statements about jurors, about them allegedly being all Democrats. By the way, there's no evidence to prove that. He calls himself the victim time and time again. And speaking outside the courthouse today, he also was going after Michael Cohen, saying that, what Michael Cohen did had nothing to do with him, which obviously is abundantly a lie as well. And again, all he does is play the victim. It's too cold in the courtroom. I should be campaigning. And don't break the law. I say don't break the law, and then he would be, by the way, he's still allowed to campaign. He can go anywhere he wants to on the weekends, Wednesdays, holidays. So he's still allowed to campaign. That's also a lie. I was having a conversation with several individuals yesterday. And those individuals that I was talking to yesterday, they seemed to make nothing but excuses for Donald Trump in this case. But I said to myself, because, they'll say it's a two-tier justice system. They'll say it's political. There are Democrats on the jury. It's a Democrat liberal judge. Bragg did this only for political purposes. And I said to myself, this is what's going to happen in all of these criminal cases. They're going to make every excuse in the book for Donald Trump like they always do. That's what these MAGA buffoons do. January 6th, he had nothing to do with that. That was Antifa. I mean, I remember I went on the air the next day, January 7th. My co-host at the time, who was and probably still is, I don't really pay attention, far to the right. And many people on social media and many people were making excuses for Trump then. He had nothing to do with this. This was George Soros. This was Antifa disguised as Trump supporters. It doesn't matter what Donald Trump does, and it doesn't matter whether there's a guilty verdict and he is a criminal, which I believe he will be. He will be a convicted felon. There's so many in the Republican base are still going to support him. Kristi Noem was interviewed the other day, and these Republicans are asked, if he's a convicted felon, will you still support him? And they don't even blink an eye. They say yes. It doesn't matter what the evidence is. They say yes. Doesn't matter. And I'm telling you, it's going to happen in every single one of these criminal cases. And it's sad. But, it goes back to the irony of Donald Trump bringing up the fake news narrative. Literally, that's what they were doing. A scheme to come up with fake news. And it's sad. It's pathetic. And, what else can you possibly say? But there are people out there, plenty of people out there, that think that this is all politically motivated, that Donald Trump did absolutely nothing wrong, and this is the Democrats, this is George Soros, this is the Joe Biden two-tier justice system. And I ask these people, and I say to these people, well, what if he's found guilty? What if a jury of his peers finds that he's guilty and a convicted felon? It doesn't matter to them. There are a group of people in society, it doesn't matter to them. It just simply doesn't matter. But the guy joining us right now on the line, he is a conservative pundit, and he wants to make the case, and I want to give him the opportunity to do so, that this is all political, that Trump didn't break the law. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but Carmine Sabia joining us right now on the line. Carmine, I do appreciate you being here, my friend. It's been a little while since you came on the show. I appreciate you being here. How are you?
No problem. It's a little crazy busy today, man. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm glad nobody's lit themselves on fire outside the courthouse. That's a good thing, but doing okay.
That's fantastic.
All right, so Carmine, let's start here from square one. Obviously I want the chips to fall where they may. I think the evidence, at least so far from what I've heard, is pretty overwhelming that this was election interference. Where am I wrong, and why do you think this is all politically motivated?
Okay. I think if you're being intellectually honest, Brian, you know that if Donald Trump sitting there today is a Democrat and Alvin Bragg has this case in front of him, this case is not brought. The case was past the statute of limitations, had to be put together like a Frankenstein to get it to even be a case, then to be a felony. But I'll take it even a step further. there's actually a lot of steps further I could take it. Hillary Clinton did pretty much the same thing with the Steele dossier, marked it down as a legal expense, had to pay a fine, and it was over. Trump's got to go to a criminal trial. Alvin Bragg initially passed on the case. However, a member of Joe Biden's Justice Department, Michael Colangelo, the number 3 guy there with a super cushy, beautiful job there, had no reason to lower himself to go back to New York City to work under Alvin Bragg. Suddenly he does. And the case that Alvin Bragg passed on, that people left his office because they were furious that he passed on it because they wanted to get Trump too, but he said it wasn't a good case. Suddenly Colangelo goes there, and now this Frankenstein case appears out of nowhere. And again, let's be realistic. You and I both know if this is anybody else, if this is Obama, Clinton,
okay,
Biden,
but
in
hold on.
New York.
But hold on. Can you name me a prominent Democrat that paid a woman hush money payments 2 weeks before a presidential election, or any election for that matter? Can you name me one Democrat who did this?
It's not important. It's not important.
What do you mean that's not important? That's the whole case.
Because the crime...
Falsifying business documents. Falsifying business. Falsifying business documents. You don't have a problem with that at all?
Hillary Clinton did the same thing. Paid a fine.
That was investigated, though.
This case, even okay, so was this. Even if this is true, it's from 2016, Brian. It's past the statute of limitations. This is not criminal activity. It's not criminal activity. A guy paid somebody hush money. That's not a crime.
If they falsified...
The crime is that he marked it as a legal expense. Well, so did Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
Tell me the difference in those two cases.
Okay, so...
Besides Democrat and Republican.
So I can tell you this. That was investigated thoroughly. There's a lot of Republicans out there that wanted Hillary Clinton to go to jail, Donald Trump being one of them. I heard the same stuff about I heard the same stuff about Benghazi, where there were 8 investigations led by Republicans. They didn't find anything. Hillary Clinton also testified under oath. This is now, I think both things can be true. I'm not going to sit here and say that Bragg, this is all political and he only did this for political reasons. But hypothetically speaking, even if that was true, both can be true. You can make the case that Bragg is doing this for political reasons, but if there's a there and he's convicted and he's a convicted felon, will you then admit that, okay, the evidence was proven in a court of law, he falsified business documents, he's now a convicted felon? Will you admit it?
Will I admit he's a convicted felon if he's a convicted felon?
Yeah. Will you still make excuses and blame Democrats?
Of course I'll make excuses, because the excuses are there. Bro, listen to me. Gargamel has a better shot being tried by a jury of Smurfs than Trump has in New York City.
So first of all, you don't agree with the charges. You think they're Frankenstein charges. Now you're making the case that the jury's all tainted because they're all Democrats. By the way, there's no evidence to prove that. We don't know that to be true.
No, but there's no evidence of that. You're right. There is absolutely no evidence that jury's all Democrat. I don't know that particular jury's all Democrat.
So why would you make that case then?
But I can show you the voting record of that area and tell you what the odds are.
So what? I mean, I don't understand.
As a person who was formerly involved in perhaps some bookmaking operations, I don't want Alvin Bragg to hear that, though, because that might be from the year 1987, and he may bring a charge that I did something. I can tell you the odds on that jury being heavily anti-Trumpers is super high.
So hold on a second. Just from what we know right now, this guy Pecker met with Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. He's already testified under oath. And they met not to protect Donald Trump's family, not to protect his friends or Melania Trump, who I would think Donald Trump doesn't care much about. He only cared about himself. This is according to Pecker, not me. Pecker said they did it because they wanted to make sure that it was kept away from the general public before the 2016 presidential elections. And you're telling me that you're okay with that and you don't think that's election interference?
First of all, I never listened to a Pecker before, and I'm not going to start today.
So all of a sudden now, so you don't want to listen to any of the witnesses that are testifying under oath that had personal involvement in this. You're making a claim that the jury are a bunch of Democrats. Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly what's going on. You put David Pecker in a room and you say, we're going to bring this, and this against you. Or we can give you immunity to say this, and this about Trump. He's going to be a rat. Michael Cohen's a rat. Michael Cohen should be a co-defendant Never mind. If what he's saying is true, then Michael Cohen should be a co-defendant, not a witness. And that's why I can't stand a rat, because if it's a crime and you committed it with him, then you're just as guilty. Why do you get special treatment because somebody else is more famous than you?
Well,
Michael Cohen is a sleazebag.
Okay, well, then Donald Trump maybe shouldn't have hired him. That was his personal attorney, and Donald Trump has said many a times he only hires the best people, so that's his fault then. So you're discrediting every single witness that is going to testify under oath in this case. You're claiming that Pecker's lying. You're making an assumption that the jury is full of Democrats and he can't get a fair trial, but the one person that you do believe that you think is innocent in all of this is the guy who lied 30,000 times when he was president of the United States. Do I have that right?
Well, now, first of all, that 30,000 number is outrageous.
Okay, you're right. You're right. Donald Trump's a very honest person. You're right.
I never said that.
Okay.
But Joe Biden lies every time he speaks. How about his uncle grandfather, who was eaten by cannibals in New Guinea? How about he was raised in a Greek, Jewish,
Name me a
Italian,
crime.
Spanish,
Name me a crime.
Hindu, Christian, Jewish neighborhood. He's a compulsive liar. He's made up stories about other people's lives and passed them off as his own in the same way. So let's not talk about politicians lying.
We're not talking about.
No party has the lock on that.
So we're talking about criminality, and I am shocked that you would compare the honesty or integrity of Joe Biden to Donald Trump. There is no comparison there, and we're not.
I agree. He has no honesty or integrity.
Okay, so you don't think Joe Biden has honesty or integrity, but you think Donald Trump does. Is that the argument you're trying to make now?
I am not sitting here. No, I'm not sitting here and arguing with you that Donald Trump is a good man, a kind man.
Okay, I'm glad we can agree on that.
I'm not arguing he's not a liar. I'm not arguing any of that with you. I'm saying to you, this is a BS case. Now, you want to talk to me about the Georgia case? You want to talk to me about Jack Smith's case? Mm-hmm. Both cases much stronger than this piece of gutter sludge in New York City case.
So I just want to be
this
clear.
Case is ridiculous.
You're okay. 2 weeks. Let's talk about ridiculous. You're okay. Forget about even criminality. Just from a personal standpoint, you're okay with a guy who has unprotected sex with a porn star, tries 2 months after Barron is born. He meets up with this guy from the Inquirer, Pecker, and Cohen. They make a payment to Stormy Daniels because clearly they don't want it out to the general public weeks before a presidential election. They falsify business documents, and you're telling me you're okay with that.
It's sleazy. So what? What?
But it rises to the level of criminality.
Sleazy forever.
Can you name me
anything? I don't think it does.
Can you name me anything that Joe Biden has done in an entire life that would rise to that level of how you would characterize it as sleaziness? Can you name me one thing?
Oh my God!
Go ahead. I'll wait. Paying off a porn star, hush money payments, having an affair, and then falsifying business records 2 weeks before the election.
I don't know, a lot of millions and millions of dollars flowing into the Biden family from foreign governments for people who have no skills and are smoking crack. That's sleazy to me.
Not against the law.
I think that's sleazy. I also think election interference is, I don't know, all of social media getting together and saying, hey, let's not talk about this Hunter Biden laptop and let's get some people from the intelligence community to pretend that it's Russian disinformation. Hunter Biden's
never been an elected official. He's Joe Biden's son. I don't even know why you're bringing that up. He's a private citizen.
Then why did they go through all that trouble to suppress it? If Joe Biden is no involved in that,
the FBI,
if he's crackhead son with no experience being on the board of Burisma,
I don't understand.
No involvement.
I don't understand why you use the term crackhead son. There's a lot of people in this country that have drug addiction, and the only reason why you're
absolutely right.
The only reason why you make that statement is because it's Joe Biden's son, and I find that to be extremely insulting.
Not true.
Would you call
true?
Would you call somebody in Donald Trump's family crackhead son? Would you say that about Eric Trump, who does the sniffles and wipes stuff from his nose every single time he's talking?
Do you have proof that Eric Trump was on crack?
Do I have actual evidence?
That Eric Trump's on crack?
Do you have proof
I'll call him a crackhead.
Do you have proof that Joe Biden has Alzheimer's? You've said that on social media.
I've said he acts like somebody who has Alzheimer's.
Okay, well, guess what?
Alzheimer's.
Don Jr. acts like somebody who does cocaine every single day. So, I guess we can go two-share there on that one. But the point I'm trying to make...
You can say that. No. There's a reason I say crackhead, though. So you're disparaging me, and there's a reason I say crackhead. It's not to make fun of him for being a crackhead. Drug addiction is a serious thing. I've had members of my family who had drug addiction. I don't make fun of that. In fact, You could find a tweet from me. I'd have to find it for you, but it's on. You could search my thing.
Okay, but whether Hunter Biden
Joe Biden is a good dad who loves his son.
Would you say the same about Trump?
It's a shame what happened to him.
Would you say the same about Trump?
The reason.
You think Trump's a good father who loves his kids?
I do.
Okay, well, that's ridiculous, but go ahead.
Well, you have no evidence that he doesn't love his kids. I think he
Actually,
loves his kids very much.
Actually, I do. If he loved his family, he wouldn't be throwing them under the bus with the Trump organization. He wouldn't be cheating on multiple wives constantly. If he loved his family, maybe his wife wouldn't have accused him of rape in a deposition with 26 women that have accused him of sexual assault or rape. No, I don't think he loves his kids. Go ahead.
Does Bill Clinton love his wife? Did John F. Kennedy love his wife?
Did
a lot of guys who cheat love their wives?
Yeah, but Bill Clinton is not the head of the Democrat Party right now, and he's not running for re-election. I don't defend Bill Clinton's actions at all. I think he did some things that were absolutely horrendous and horrible. And if Bill Clinton ran again right now, I would not support him, and I wouldn't vote for him. I would over Donald Trump. But do you think that he loves his wife? I think there was a time where he probably still does. But if you're going to compare Bill Clinton, how many ex-wives does Bill Clinton have?
What I'm saying to you, a woman could choose to stay if she gets cheated on, or she could choose to leave. What I'm saying to you is, I do think Bill Clinton loves his wife, and I think he loves his kids, and I think he loves Chelsea, his one kid, and I think that he put them in a precarious situation, but it doesn't mean he didn't love them. He just made a bad decision. What I'm saying to you now, I want to get back to the crackhead thing though, because it's important.
Sure.
The reason I say crackhead in this particular case, and if Hunter Biden was just an artist doing whatever, wouldn't say crackhead. The reason I say it is because I have to believe that if he wasn't selling his dad's name, that Burisma said, hey, can we go find us a crackhead with no experience to give a ton of money to sit on this board? Because that's what we need. And then they went and sought out this guy who just happened to be named Biden and put him on the board.
There's no laws.
And I have to believe that suppressing that information and the White House being involved with getting social media to suppress that information and the intelligence community getting involved to call it Russian disinformation all happened if they didn't think that was harmful, because they knew that it wasn't Russian disinformation.
But we are talking about...
So if they didn't think it was harmful...
But Carmine, we're talking about...
But you talked about election interference. That's election interference.
We're talking about criminality, and there is absolutely no evidence that has been brought forth that proves that Joe Biden committed any crimes. And when there is, I'll listen to it. Right now, Joe Biden's not facing any criminal wrongdoing, regardless of what you might think about Hunter Biden. Your guy, the guy that you support, who, by the way, has already proven to be a liable sexual abuser in a courtroom in the E. Jean Carroll case. I know you probably. I figured you'd probably think that was nonsense as well. Is there anything that Donald Trump can do that you would say, hey, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't support that guy. I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden. But maybe what does Donald Trump have to do? Does he have to rape a woman on camera for you to finally say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to vote for that guy? How many felony counts, if he's convicted, will it take for you, Carmine, to finally say, hey, you know what? I got to support another Republican. I can't support Donald Trump. I got to do a write-in. Is there anything he can do?
How many can they create? You mean out of thin air?
What do you mean out of thin air? Jack Smith has convicted Democrats. Jack Smith is a lifelong Republican. Are you just going to discredit every jury, every judge, every...
George Conway's a lifelong Republican.
I'm sorry?
George Conway's a lifelong Republican.
And
what?
What's your point? I'm talking about George Conway's not convicting Donald Trump. Jack Smith is. That's the point I'm trying to make. You can't say George Soros. Jack Smith is funded by George Soros, and he's a liberal. Okay, Jack Smith is a Republican. There's
a lot of anti-Trumpers in the Republican Party.
Okay, so they're all anti-Trumpers, and it can't be true. And Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong. Carmine, that's ridiculous.
I didn't say that. I didn't say you didn't do anything wrong.
None of this is legitimate. You're saying none of these cases are legitimate. You're saying the juries are tainted with Democrats, the judge. It's all made up out of thin air is what you just said. You think Jack Smith one day woke up and said, hey, I just want to make stuff up out of thin air. No, Donald Trump defied a subpoena for a year. If he didn't do anything wrong, then he wouldn't have defied a subpoena and he would have cooperated the way Joe Biden did. How do you not admit that?
Stupid. That was stupid. It was stupid. But it's not criminal. It has taken years to get paperwork back from various presidents. It is going over them and what's mine and what's yours. It's taken years. This is not a new thing. The new thing is prosecuting somebody for it. And They're prosecuting him because he's Donald Trump.
They're prosecuting him because
bro.
they believe there's evidence that he broke the law, just like in this case right now. You don't think there's any
Joe Biden
evidence?
Broke the law.
What did he do?
Listen, Joe Biden broke the law.
What did he do?
You can't take classified documents out of a SCIF. He clearly did that as a United States
the difference
senator
is,
and as the vice president.
And the difference is when he
has the right
found
to
it.
do it.
And the difference is when he found it, he notified his attorneys and they
found
cooperated with the FBI.
When he found it, first of all, decades later, number one, and you say when he found it, did the classified documents in the SCIF fall into his pocket, or did he take them?
That has been already investigated.
Fell off the shelf.
He immediately. It's already been investigated by the FBI. He cooperated. He told his attorneys. His attorneys cooperated. All the documents were given back. Donald Trump acted in the opposite way.
Hold on. So the FBI, of which Joe Biden is the head of the government. Mm-hmm. The FBI investigated him and said, nothing to see here.
They didn't say nothing to see.
Do you believe?
They didn't say nothing to see.
Do you, Brian, believe that the paperwork in the SCIF, it's illegal to remove it? You know that.
Here's what I believe. You're asking me what I believe. If you're asking me what I believe,
fall into his pocket.
No. What I'm asking to what I believe is this: if Donald Trump immediately cooperated with the attorneys and with the DOJ, if he didn't defy a subpoena for a year, which you just characterized as stupid, I would call it criminal. If he didn't tell his security to with camera surveillance, which we're going to learn more about that case, but there's witnesses that are going to testify that are going to say that Donald Trump did do that, unlike Joe Biden, who didn't do any of that stuff. If Donald Trump just cooperated, then he probably wouldn't be facing these charges. He defied a subpoena for a year. He tried to hide evidence. He told security at Mar-a-Lago to get rid of evidence, including camera surveillance and that sort of stuff. Those people are going to testify against him in a court of law. There is no comparison there. How you act, whether you make a mistake or if it's unintentional, how you act thereafter when the DOJ is investigating is extremely important in these cases. And Donald Trump did exactly what you shouldn't have done.
Listen, if he obstructed...
Of course he did.
If it's proven that he obstructed...
Of course he did.
Proven... But has the case been adjudicated already and I missed it?
There are people that are going to testify as witnesses that worked at Mar-a-Lago that were told to destroy evidence. We know that already. They're going to testify.
He doesn't have due process.
He is innocent. Right now he's guilty? He is innocent until proven guilty. Do I think he's guilty? 150%. Why would he tell people at Mar-a-Lago to destroy evidence, which we know? So the comparison between Joe Biden and Donald Trump between these two cases is absurd. By the way, Joe Biden isn't cheating on his wife left and right. He's not sexually abusing women. He's not sending people hush money payments 2 weeks before the presidential election. Why is it that people like you continue to defend Donald Trump no matter what he does? It doesn't matter what he says. He can talk about injecting yourself with disinfectant. Oh, he was just joking. It doesn't matter whether he's found liable of sexual abuse in a courtroom by a jury of his peers. E. Jean Carroll must be lying because her cat's name is Vagina. Why is it January 6th? Doesn't matter whether he lies about the 2020 election, which you know he lost. People will continue to defend Donald Trump that are MAGA supporters no matter what he does. But let's talk about Joe Biden sniffing kids.
Well, first of all, I don't defend Trump no matter what he does. I've spoken out against a bunch of things he's done. I'm on record saying this was stupid or that was stupid. But here's the thing. You're asking why I still support him. And the reason is, at the end of the day, it's a binary choice. And the country is better off with Donald Trump than they are with Joe Biden. And I can name you inflation. I can name you our weakened military.
So there wouldn't have been. So if Donald Trump was president, there wouldn't have been inflation. Is that his fault that there's some inflation all over the world? We were coming out of a global pandemic. We have a war in the Ukraine. Inflation up basically all over the world, and the countries that
we don't have a war in the Ukraine. We don't have a war in Ukraine.
So if it's Joe Biden's fault, then
Ukraine has a war in Ukraine.
So if inflation is Joe Biden's fault, by the way, our inflation has continually dropped to the countries that we compare ourselves to in the economy. We're doing quite well. But if you're going to blame Joe Biden for all the inflation, is it his fault that inflation and gas prices are up throughout the world? Is that Joe Biden's fault too? That Donald Trump could just snap his fingers and your eggs will be lower?
Yes, because if America sneezes, the world catches a cold. You can't deny that the economy was better under Trump. You forget COVID. Take COVID out of it. Forget what happened from the day COVID happened on, because I know you got.
What do you mean the economy was
jobs in history?
Unemployment
people
was.
are forced to stay home.
That's not
when
true.
People are forced to stay home, you lose jobs.
That's not true. Unemployment, it was lower before COVID. It was lower. It's lower now than it was before COVID. So what you're saying is not true. He also left Joe Biden with a terrible economy. Terrible. Look at the economy that Obama left Donald Trump compared to the economy that Trump left Joe Biden. I don't blame Donald Trump.
When Trump left office, you had COVID. The economy was collapsing. People weren't working.
Unemployment numbers are lower now than they were before COVID. You could look that up if you don't believe me. Facts matter.
Yeah, no, I know. I fully believe it because you have to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet now.
Okay, well, I mean, you could make that claim if you like, but the fact of the matter is, if you're going to make the claim that, and I don't understand how MAGA Republicans keep saying this. Oh, well, Vladimir Putin would not have invaded Ukraine because Donald or Hamas. Hamas.
Did he? Did he?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he did it because Joe Biden was president. There's no evidence to prove that.
Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine 2 times. Once, weak-kneed Obama was president, and the other time, senile Joe Biden was president.
Okay, well,
both times he sensed weakness.
So if you're going by that standard, Carmine, if you're going by that standard, I hear so many MAGA Republicans say Donald Trump was tougher on China than anybody. Then why did they produce this bioweapon virus that killed millions of people in this country when Donald Trump was president? That would be like me saying, well, China would have never created that in a Wuhan lab if Joe Biden was president. But I would never say that because it's ridiculous.
Wait a second. Are you saying to me right now that China created a bioweapon virus?
Well, I mean, COVID, to me, I don't think it was accidental. I think it was probably intentional. It may have been accidental. But here's the thing. It happened under Donald Trump. But why is it that people like you won't blame Donald Trump for that? I would never say if Joe Biden was president, they would have never created COVID in China. But that's what you're saying, in a sense. That's what you're saying.
I blame China for that. In fact, I think it's because Trump was so tough on them that they did it.
So you blame China for that. I agree with you. Carmine, we agree. Why don't you blame Vladimir Putin for invading Ukraine and stop blaming Joe Biden?
I do.
Why don't you blame... You're blaming Joe Biden. You're saying it wouldn't have happened under Donald Trump.
I think he wouldn't have because you don't know.
That's ridiculous.
Trump's unpredictable, bro.
Ridiculous. Yeah, he's very. You never know which woman he's going to sexually assault next. I completely agree with you. He's very unpredictable. You never know which lie he's going to spew.
Is there evidence of him sexually assaulting somebody?
It was proven in a courtroom that he's liable for sexual battery. His ex-wife, in a deposition under oath, said that he raped her. You have 26 other women that have accused him of sexual assault or rape. Now, if you want to call all those women liars and you don't believe E. Jean Carroll, you have the right to do that, Carmine. But guess what? I disagree. I think that Donald Trump has been horrible to women his entire life. Horrible. He demeans women. Yeah.
I also believe Donald Trump's been horrible to women his entire life. That doesn't make him a rapist.
Okay, well, a jury of his peers said that he sexually abused E. Jean Carroll. So I'm going to believe those jurors who actually saw the evidence. And if you want to defend Donald Trump, you have the right to do that. He's a horrible human being. There is no moral comparison. You can disagree with Joe Biden. I get it. You're a Republican. I understand why a lot of Republicans out there don't want to vote for Joe Biden. I might not agree with you, but I understand. What I don't understand is how you make a moral equivalency to this horrible person Joe Biden is, comparing that to Donald Trump. And I'm telling you, there is no moral equivalence there. Joe Biden is a guy that has decency.
I don't think Joe Biden's an immoral person, and I'll take it a step further. I think that Joe Biden has done some. I question some of the things. I used to defend Joe Biden against charges that he did anything with children until I saw a recent video of him actually.
Yeah. That
made me really question that. Mm-hmm. It was.
But you don't want to question. So you saw a video that leads you to question him inappropriate touching a child. But yet you're not going to question 26 women that have accused Donald Trump of rape or sexual assault, including his ex-wife. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if they have it on video, I'm willing to hear that story.
There is no evidence that Joe Biden has sexually assaulted any child on video. Now, you can characterize it as such, but it's just not true, and he hasn't been indicted on anything. There's been no charges. Now, I understand all the women that have come forward, except for E. Jean Carroll, hasn't been proven in a court of law. I totally understand that. But the bottom line here is that Trump is the guy with the multiple ex-wives. Trump is the guy that attacks women on looks. Trump is the guy that bragged about sexual assault.
Ex-wives got to do anything. Are we
One of his
disparaging
ex-wives
people who get divorced now?
One of his ex-wives accused him of rape in a deposition. So I think that does matter. I think that does. Yeah, I think the way that he's lived his life and the way he's treated women his whole life does matter. Yes, I do.
So do we only believe that, or do we believe when she said that he didn't actually rape her?
I believe that not that I believe, we know it. She was paid off a substantial amount of money. Okay. Now, if you're going to say that Donald Trump's ex-wife lied because she wanted to get paid, okay. If you believe that E. Jean Carroll just lied because she wanted a payday, okay. But nothing has been proven in a court of law that Joe Biden did anything wrong, that Joe Biden has ever inappropriately touched anybody. Republicans take one sentence from a diary with Joe Biden's daughter and assume that she must have been, 16 years old showering with Joe Biden, which, by the way, she never said.
That's a hell of a sentence. It's a hell of a sentence, though. It's not just a sentence. It's a hell of a sentence.
Do we know how old his daughter was when that happened? Did she say? She could have been 2 or 3 years old, right, Carmine? You're telling me fathers never shower with young children 2, 3 years old? Happens every day in this country. It's not against the law.
I wouldn't, but you remember things that happened when you were 2 and 3 years old?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, first time I came to Vegas, I was 3 years old. I actually do remember parts of that. The point I'm trying to make is you guys will run with one sentence in a diary that Joe Biden's daughter wrote. But when it comes to 26 women and the history of Donald Trump and the way he's treated women, bragging about sexual assault with the audio to prove it, you're just going to say that was just locker room talk, right? Because that's the excuse that Donald Trump made.
Wait a second. Did he brag about sexual assault? Because I want to point to something about that. Was it a disgusting thing he said? It was a disgusting thing he said.
He bragged about grabbing women because he's famous, and then after that he said, well, they let you do it.
Wait. He said, before he said it, he said, they let you do anything. They let you do it. Mm-hmm. Let you. Mm-hmm. Allow you to.
All right. So if you go up, if you go up,
that's not sexual assault. If somebody lets you do something.
Well, I think most men probably won't grab women like that unless they give you the go ahead before, and grab them by the what. I think most people would characterize that differently. If you characterize it that way,
the indication there, though, the indication of. Yep. But they let you do it. To me, the indication is that, yes, you have permission.
All right. Well, again, you can defend Donald Trump if you like. If you could find Joe Biden ever talking like that about women or bragging about what he did in grabbing women, find Joe Biden calling, John McCain, I don't respect him because he was captured. If you could find any statements that even rise to anywhere close to that level of the despicable statements and the way that Donald Trump has lived his life, sued, by the way, thousands of times, civil lawsuits, didn't want black people, him and his father, living in his complexes, way before he got into political life.
Oh, stop it.
What do you mean stop it? He lost those civil lawsuits. He had to pay people. He lost in a courtroom. He lost.
Somebody lost a civil lawsuit, had to pay
thousands.
Money? That's shocking.
Thousands. By the way, did Joe Biden ever take out a page in the New York Times of the Central Park Five saying they deserve the electric chair? And then it turns out those 5 minorities were actually completely innocent and wrongfully accused and convicted. Did Donald Trump ever apologize? I'm just curious.
They were not completely innocent. I'm here to tell you today they're guilty as sin itself.
Okay, well, that's not factually accurate. They were found innocent.
They were not exonerated. They're guilty as sin itself.
No, they're not.
My friend, they're guilty.
Why were they released from prison?
Do some research.
Why were they released? Well, then tell me why they released. Why were they released?
It's technicalities.
They were released because of technicalities. Okay.
I implore you to do some research into that. Those kids are guilty as hell.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me ask you a question then. I respectfully disagree with you on that, but let me ask you a question then. When 3 white people lynched Ahmaud Arbery, why didn't Donald Trump take a page out of a newspaper and talk about how those 3 men? Why did he go after 5 in the Parkland 5? Why did he go after them? But then when white supremacists lynch somebody who happens to be black, why is it that Donald Trump doesn't take the opportunity to also take a page out of the New York Times and say, boy, those people deserve the death penalty. They murdered Ahmaud Arbery. Why was it the Central Park 5? Can you tell me why?
Sure. Did that happen in New York? Arbery? Did that happen in New York?
White supremacists.
Donald Trump was a businessman?
White supremacists have killed people in New York City as well. I'm just wondering why he never takes a page out of the New York Times to talk about that, but takes the opportunity to go after 5 minorities who are now free, who are through DNA evidence have found that they were not guilty of that crime. I'm just curious. That's all. Why does he seem to go after minorities? These Mexicans, they're rapists, they're bad people, and I suppose some of them are good people.
Mexicans. He said some of them.
Right.
Some of them. Are you going to deny?
No, he didn't.
Are you going to deny some of them are?
No,
I think
that's not what he said.
His family would like to disagree with you.
That's not what he
some
said.
of them are rapists and murderers.
Okay, that's not what he
It is
said.
what he said.
No, he didn't. He said,
I'm sure some are good people.
Right. No, but it's not, I'm sure some are good people. The majority of them are good people. Per capita in this country, you have a better chance of being the victim of from an American citizen than someone that's undocumented. It's not, I suppose, some of them are good people. It's most of them are good people. And he continues to go
I
after
would agree
these
with that. I think most of them are good people.
Okay.
They've broken the law.
That's not
They've
what Donald
broken the
Trump said.
law.
That's not what Donald Trump said. He called them rapists and bad people and uses the term animals. And he wasn't just referring to the person who killed Riley. He used the term, these people are animals. He didn't say that person who murdered Riley's a murderer or an animal. I would agree with that statement. That's not what he said. People twist his words, and that's not what he said. These people are animals with an S at the end.
He was talking. I remember that speech, and he said it several times. He's talking about the MS-13. Have you ever come into contact with anybody from MS-13? I have.
Yeah.
I assure you,
Sure.
they're animals.
Okay, but he didn't say MS-13 when he was talking about Riley and the person who killed Riley, who I would agree is an animal. He said these people are animals. And when I characterize that as well, he's calling undocumented people animals. What you have to say, and the words matter. Your words matter when you're the former president of the United States. The person who murdered Riley is an animal. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that language. But when you say these people...
I agree.
But he doesn't do that.
I agree. He's not eloquent. He's not eloquent.
Yeah, I would say it's not about being eloquent. It's about demonizing a group of people, inciting violence. I would love to beat that guy up. If you punch that guy in the face, I'll pay your legal fees. That's not a lack of being eloquent. That's inciting violence. It's lying about the 2020 election, and then we have 140 officers that were beaten and people died that day. That's not, well, geez, I wish he was more eloquent. That's you're inciting violence because you have a huge platform.
The man's not careful with his words. I agree. I was having a conversation with like-minded conservatives today where I said I wish he would just think before he speaks.
Let me ask you a question. If you heard a guy and you were with a woman you're dating or whatever, and you heard a guy at the table over say, grab him by the you-know-what, would you say to your wife or girlfriend or whatever your situation is, boy, that guy's not very eloquent? No, Carmine, I know you wouldn't say that. You'd say that guy's a scumbag.
No, if he said it in public, but if I'm recording somebody in a private moment with another guy, Brian, you and I both know that guys say some crappy stuff about women, some misogynistic stuff about women when they are behind the scenes.
First
I'm not
of all,
saying you do.
He has a microphone.
I'm not saying I do.
He has a microphone on his shirt. He's talking to people that he doesn't know personally, including a camera guy. He's got a microphone on him. Imagine how bad it is, the things that he says when he is behind closed doors, when he would make a statement like that in a TV interview with a microphone on his shirt with people that he doesn't know very well. And that is not an excuse. And I played 2 college sports, and you're right. People do say chauvinistic things and inappropriate things. I've never heard anybody talk like that. Grab them by the you-know-what. I've never heard anybody talk like that. And it's not locker room talk. Yes, people say chauvinistic things. But that was his excuse. Well, it was just locker room talk.
I mean, it kind of is.
Okay. I mean, I haven't heard anybody talk like that.
I haven't heard something quite that extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. I mean, guys... Listen, ladies, if you're listening, guys say crappy things when you're not around. Really crappy
Not
things.
every guy talks like that. Let me ask you another question. And by the way, if you're just joining us, Carmine Sevilla, really good conversation. A few more minutes, Carmine, and I do appreciate your time. All these people I love it too. All these people that have worked in Donald Trump's administration, maybe not all, but most of them, including his former vice president, generals that have worked underneath him, dozens and dozens of people. They're not only not endorsing him, but they're speaking out against him, again, including his vice president. Joe Biden's been in this business for decades and decades and decades. Where are all the people coming out of the woodworks that worked for Joe Biden that are not only not endorsing him, but speaking out negatively against him in the way that so many of these people that worked under Donald Trump? Why do so many people that have worked for Donald Trump, speaking out against him, saying he's not fit for office? I don't see any of these people that have worked for Joe Biden doing that. Why is that, Carmine?
Sure, that could be concerning if you don't realize that Donald Trump is basically a real detriment to their agenda. When he's a real detriment to their sleazy agenda of money laundering in Ukraine.
Mike Pence was money laundering?
Things of that nature.
Mike Pence was money laundering, and he had an agenda? What was his agenda?
Mike Pence, I think, is a great man. I think Mike Pence is a great man who is very strong in his Christian beliefs, and I think that's his issue with Trump, and that's, I believe those are his deeply held beliefs, and I don't think anything. I've nothing bad to say about Mike Pence.
What about all these generals? What about all these generals that risk their life so people like you and me can, talk on a radio show, that have said that he's unfit for office, including a guy by the name of Bolton who worked in Trump's administration and so many others. And Mike Pence is also
Michael Bolton.
Yeah.
Mike Bolton is a. Did I say Mike Bolton? It's not Mike Bolton. It's John Bolton.
Yep.
But I do celebrate his entire catalog. John Bolton is a warmonger. So anybody who's anti-war is not on John Bolton's hit parade.
What about all the generals?
I want a woman. I someday want a woman to love me the way John Bolton loves war.
Okay, well, I mean, we can discredit him, but again, it's another guy that Donald Trump hired. I thought he only hired the best people. What about all?
You would agree that he's a warmonger, yes?
I'm not a big fan of Mr. Bolton. I never have been. But at the same time, if you worked for Donald Trump and you're speaking out against him the way Bolton does, I think that does matter. I think it matters that Donald Trump's, and by the way, it's not just religious Christian beliefs. Pence has come out even on CNN and said, listen, the way, Donald Trump wanted me to overturn the election, I didn't have the right to do that. So it's a lot of other things. I think January 6th has a lot to do with it as well. I can't stand Mike Pence.
I agree with that completely as well. He did not have the right to overturn the election. Trump should have never asked him to overturn the election.
Well,
it was wrong.
Well,
I'm never going to defend that.
A lot of MAGA supporters say that Mike Pence didn't have the courage. If Mike Pence doesn't have courage, it's got nothing to do with what took place on January 6th. I'll tell you that. But the point I'm trying to make is, where are all these people that have worked for Joe Biden? Where are they that are saying, boy, I don't support him as president? Even Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s family, so many immediate family members, including his sister, are not only not supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but they're endorsing Joe Biden.
Sure they are. They understand where their bread is buttered. They know what's going on.
Okay.
They know Robert Kennedy has no shot of winning. Look, parties, Republican and Democrat, they're a cult. They coalesce around each other. But Trump, he's outside of the cabal. That's why they don't coalesce around him. If it was Ron DeSantis, who I think you'd be sitting here telling me a lot of the same negative things about Ron DeSantis.
No, I wouldn't. Ron DeSantis.
I love Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis didn't dodge the military multiple times. Donald Trump is a coward. While I don't like Ron DeSantis, he's never been accused of sexual assault. While I don't like a lot of his beliefs, he served this country honorably and he risked his life, and I will always have respect for that. Donald Trump is a coward. He is a coward who dodged the military, who puts on his 5 layers of makeup every day when he wakes up and always plays the victim card. I'm sorry. I mean, the two aren't even comparable. I don't like Ron DeSantis personally. I wouldn't vote for him, but I respect his service to this country. So I disagree with you. I wouldn't call Ron DeSantis a coward.
Okay, but I'm just saying you wouldn't like him. You'd be saying not nice.
I wouldn't vote for him. But I wouldn't call him a sexual abuser. I wouldn't say he dodged the military. I wouldn't say he broke the law necessarily. I mean, you could argue that putting all those migrants on a plane, some people characterize it as kidnapping. I don't know if I would do that, but it was morally repugnant. But I wouldn't be saying the same. I don't like Ron DeSantis on policy.
I'll ask you this question real quick.
Sure.
Real quick. Why was that morally repugnant? I mean, the sanctuary cities obviously want
Sure,
that.
because he did. I'll tell you why. Good question, Carmine, and I'll tell you why. He sent those people to Martha's Vineyard, not because he cared about them, not because he wanted them to be cared for. He's even admitted it himself. He wanted to own the libs. How do we know that? He gave them pamphlets. Those people in his administration gave them pamphlets, including a pregnant woman and a young child. The pamphlets were full of lies. He put them on that plane so that he could make a point the same way that Governor Abbott does, to own the libs. And in making a political point and trying to score political points, you're playing with human beings and their lives. If he sent them to another city where he thought they would have been taken care of, maybe Boston or a place where they have shelter, I wouldn't be saying that. But he sends them to Martha's Vineyard, where he knows all the liberals are there, and he did it to own the libs at the expense of human beings. It's morally repugnant.
And while it's not, I agree with you that it wasn't right to do it. Let me ask you this question, though. Isn't it a lot easier to sit in Martha's Vineyard with your security and your beautiful beach and all that and say, we should take in more migrants?
No.
We should be helping them.
Because they don't know. No, Carmine, because they don't have the facilities and the shelters that they would have in a large city. And listen, Ron DeSantis is not dumb. He knows that. and he only did it to score political points. How do we?
Wait, I disagree. I disagree vociferously with this. He only sent 50 people there.
Doesn't matter if it was two people. Doesn't matter if it was two people.
Wait. Are you sitting here telling me that they could not empty out one of their country clubs?
They did help them.
And house these people?
They did help them. They gave them food. They gave them shelter until they found another plane, and I believe they sent them to Boston, Massachusetts, where they had better facilities for them to stay. Ron DeSantis
got them out of there. They got him out of there quicker than somebody gets rid of VD.
And they were taken care of.
And there.
You cannot tell me with a straight face, Carmine, that Ron DeSantis did that because he cared about these individuals and he wanted to make sure they got the proper care. He gave them pamphlets full of lies, and he tried to own the libs, because owning the libs for Republicans, in my opinion, today, by so many of them, is more important. Owning the libs is more important than helping human beings.
We didn't even get to talk about my favorite topic.
What's that?
Right now, which is it's my least favorite topic, but my favorite one to talk about right now, which is these campus protests, man.
Well, we probably agree on that. I guess we can end. I was going to take some phone calls, but if you want to talk about that for a few more minutes, Carmine, I think
we can take phone calls.
I think it's.
We can take phone calls.
Honestly, Carmine, I think it's disgusting. We agree. What's going on these college campuses? It's
Columbia gave in to them today too.
Yeah, well, listen, it's terrible. That university should be ashamed of themselves. So I'm with you on this 150%. I will say this.
Okay.
I appreciate Republicans that are very strong on Israel. When I hear a Marco Rubio or a Lindsey Graham, I find myself saying, wow, am I agreeing with Marco Rubio? I know you're very pro-Israel as well. I appreciate that. I want the Democrat Party, and I think most Democrats in the party are pro-Israel. There is a fringe part of them that are not.
Most are on board, yeah.
Yeah,
but most are on board.
But what's going on these campuses is a joke. It's a joke. It's dangerous and it's terrible. Yeah, it is. You're right. I agree.
I would say to you this. It's been going on since the 1960s, and I'm all for protesting what you believe in, but I think a lot of people, and I said it's been going on since the 1960s on these college campuses, where the people who know the least speak the loudest. Mm-hmm. And, they have an opinion about everything. And you and I both know that next year at this time, they're not going to give a darn about Israel, Hamas, Gaza, Palestine. They're going to have some other thing that they're protesting for, whatever it is, whatever the thing of the moment is. But this is not just, when they protest guns and school shootings and this and that, you're like, okay, well, they probably don't know what they're talking about, but they got some valid points, and let them express themselves. This is different about expressing yourself, because while I'm all for free speech, a lot of these people are protesting for literally the murder of Jews.
Oh, I know.
They are literally protesting for Hamas. They're protesting for a terrorist group. And I think when speech gets to that point where it is endangering lives, it is no longer free speech. It is criminal, and it should be treated as such.
Agree.
And that's what needs to happen here.
Agree. Anybody who says, death to Americans, anybody who chants out, kill all Israelis, or I understand there's something called freedom of speech, but you can't threaten people, and you can't say some of the things that these people are saying. I think a lot of these people are extremely uneducated. They have hate in their heart, and they're not educated on the issues. And I think that's a problem. And I feel
it's not about Gaza and the Palestinians. It's about they hate Jewish people.
Well, I'll give Mehdi Hassan credit, because he said a lot of things that I would consider anti-Israel lately, but he is defending Jewish people, and he is defending, he's on social media saying that. But there are too many people out there.
That shocks me.
Yeah, it shocked me as well today, because I'm not a big Mehdi Hassan fan, but I'm with you on this one, my friend. Maybe we should end on a good note. What do you think, Carmine?
Sounds good, man. It sounds good.
Carmine, next time I want to take calls.
I would love to come back next time and take calls from your callers.
Let's do that.
And answer questions.
Let's do that.
Absolutely,
Carmine,
man.
I love it. It's always, and believe it or not, Carmine and I have a lot more things in common. We just don't like talking about that on the radio, so we'll keep that quiet, Carmine.
It's boring radio. It's boring radio.
Carmine, you're the best. You have a great rest of your week, my friend, and I do appreciate you taking the time, Carmine. Thank you so much.
You too. Happy Passover to you and your family, my friend.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Appreciate that. God bless you too, Carmine. Carmine's a good guy. We just disagree on a lot of things. That's all. But Carmine's a good guy. And I always appreciate having a good debate, having a good spirited conversation. Speaking of which, by the way, we have the former North Las Vegas mayor coming in studio tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to that, because he's running. He used to be a Democrat, running as a Republican. He's running against Stephen Horsford. John Lee is going to be joining us in studio tomorrow. But here's what we're going to do coming up next, right? I did a very controversial I don't think I was controversial, but I interviewed a very controversial doctor. His name's Dr. Peter McCullough. It went viral, so much so that InfoWars did 30 minutes on my interview, and so many media entities and people have invited me on their shows to talk about it. Dr. Peter McCullough is a guy that's very anti-vaccine. He did an interview with Joe Rogan that went viral, and we had a good-spirited debate for 45 minutes. But I wanted someone on to debunk some of the things that he says. And the guy joining us next, Dr. Brian Labus, he's a professor at the UNLV School of Public Health, Epidemiology, and Biostatistics. He's going to tell us where Dr. Peter McCullough is wrong. You're going to hear from an expert coming up next. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran, veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your People's Choice for City Council. With a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen, I am committed to moving us forward. I am not just a candidate, I am a fighter for you. With myself on the City Council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith, because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Voters want safe gun reform, ban military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks, and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman, former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign Bot Fun account and stay progressive.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. No better place to catch a VGK game than Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. You can check them out. And they have a Pass the Puck contest where you can win free slot play, great prizes, great food, great atmosphere, great staff. Really, it's my favorite gaming bar in town, hands down. No other place comes close to it. Please check them out, Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. All right. So if you watch this show religiously, or maybe you don't, but you probably heard of my interview with Dr. Peter McCullough. The interview went viral. It's got over 1 million views across all forms of social media. And Dr. McCullough also has over 1 million followers on X, and he put it out there. And a lot of people have been attacking me that are McCullough fans. I would call some of them conspiracy theorists, most of them. But I wanted to get an expert on the show to talk about that interview. And the guy joining us right now, he's been on this show before. It's been a little while. He is Dr. Brian Labus. He's a professor at the University School of Public Health, specialized in epidemiology and biostatistics, a true expert joining us right now on the show. Dr. Labus, I appreciate you being here, sir. How are you?
Thanks for having me here.
Appreciate it. Okay, Brian, let me give you the big question to start here, and then we'll get more specific. I would imagine you saw the interview I did with Dr. McCullough. What was your initial reaction after watching that interview?
Well, I really didn't watch the whole thing. It was a long interview, and it gets tiring with some of the arguments that are made, because it's really arguing over individual facts. And the real challenge is putting those facts in context. And I think that's what was really interesting to me about the interview. You can say a lot of things that are very factual, but if you spin them the right way, put them all together, paint a picture, that's completely wrong. Yeah. So, for example, I can say, before the Cubs won the World Series, we didn't have COVID. And it gives the impression that one event led to COVID occurring.
Yeah.
Sequentially, they have power, but that's not the reality of why those things occurred. And so, on an individual level, there are a lot of facts that make sense. As soon as you start taking those things apart, it paints a picture that's really incorrect. And we deal with that a lot with people who are against vaccinations.
Brian, I have a request. I'm sorry to interject. I have a quick request. Your audio is a little bit hard to hear. It's going in and out. I don't know if maybe you need to be a little closer, or maybe headphones. Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, we have headphones.
That'd be great. I guess that might help. Numchuck, you're my producer. Do you think that's a good suggestion? Okay, let's try that, because I don't want anybody to miss anything that you've said. Are you there, Doctor? Is he getting his headphones? Okay, he's getting his headphones. Okay, good. Yeah, because I want to make sure everybody can hear him, because this is really, really important stuff, right? This is really, really important stuff. And we're talking about the interview that I did with Dr. Peter McCullough, who is very anti-vaccine, and I wanted to get somebody on the show who's got a lot of experience to discuss this. And by the way, for the record, Brian Labus isn't selling vitamins and pills on his website. Brian Labus isn't, going on right-wing entities spreading misinformation. I wanted to get somebody on here with a ton of credibility, and Brian Labus certainly has that. So is he okay? So he's getting his headphones, and I want to make sure that we can hear every word he said. But starting the interview, Dr. Labus said that he didn't even watch the whole thing because it was kind of the same faulty arguments, and I want to ask him specific questions about that. And there's a lot of people that were attacking me and saying that I am pro-vax. I'm not even pro-vax. I'm pro listening to your personal physician and making a personal decision. I've never said that vaccines should be mandated. All right, Doc, are you there?
All right, good. You hear me?
That sounds a heck of a lot better, Doc. Okay, so let me ask you that question again. You had a chance to watch some of the interview, and you said, yeah, you couldn't even watch the whole thing because it was kind of the same arguments. Tell me about that.
Well, when you listen to arguments from people that are against vaccines, what you get are a lot of facts that are correct. Sometimes they're completely made up, but there are true facts in there. But the context is usually what's missing. So as I was saying before, you could argue that before the Cubs won the World Series, there was no COVID. And after the World Series, now all of a sudden we have COVID. Well, yes, those things happen sequentially, but it doesn't mean one caused the other. And I think that's really the challenge here is saying that one of these things caused the other things. And that's usually what's missing.
I agree. So let me ask you this. One of the arguments that Dr. McCullough makes is that he believes over 550,000 people died from the vaccines in this country. And my argument to him was, where's your evidence of that? Do you know those people, the medical history? Have you seen the autopsy and all that stuff? And his claim was the CDC is not releasing enough information. And I said, then why would you make that assumption? What are your thoughts on that statement that he and so many of these other anti-vaxxers make, that all these people have died from taking the vaccine, hundreds of thousands of people?
If you're going to make a claim, you need to have evidence to back that up. And a lot of times we don't have that. That's the challenge, putting out the evidence to support that claim. If you're the one making the claim, you need to back it up. But if your argument is, I'm right no matter what, there's no way to falsify that. So if they say, this happened, and they have the data, they can prove it, but the fact that they don't have the data also proves it. Well, they're always right. There's no way to even argue with it. How can you make a counter argument against something that, no matter what you say, they're going to say supports their argument? So that's always a challenge in the people that are presenting the anti-vax information, is the data isn't there to support it, and that's evidence of a conspiracy, which also supports it. So it makes it very difficult to argue against it.
When somebody makes the claim like a Dr. McCullough that the CDC isn't providing enough information, what is your response to that?
Well, every piece of data in the world can't be released. We're not going to release everybody's personal information to the world. There isn't one massive data set that has everything. There are plenty of things that I would love to have more data on. Either the data doesn't exist or it's just something that not everybody has access to.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality of it. Every COVID case, we don't have a full case interview with every single person. We don't have a full medical history. We don't have everything about them. That data doesn't exist. So it's not that CDC releasing it. A lot of times it doesn't exist, period. That's why we do individual studies to look into those things, but they're on a much smaller scale because we can't interview 1 million people for a study and have it done in any reasonable amount of time and with any reasonable amount of funding.
And what I try to tell people, Dr. Labus, is that, and as you know, more than half the world is vaccinated. And with that being said, you hear conspiracy theories about all these athletes that are allegedly dropping dead. And and if you remember the story, doctor, about I think she was a 13-year-old girl here in Las Vegas. Horrible story, right? She gets on the soccer field, she drops, and she loses her life. Everybody, it seems like, on the far right or conspiracy theorists were alleging that she must have died from the vaccine. And then her mother does an interview weeks after she lost her daughter saying, no, that's not true. She suffered from a heart condition. And it seems like this is happening throughout the country, where you'll even hear a radio host in this town in Las Vegas claiming that all these athletes are dropping dead and dying from the vaccines. I mean, it gets me frustrated. I would imagine it gets you pretty frustrated as well.
Well, it is a challenging thing to deal with, but it's also not new. This is the same thing we dealt with when the HPV vaccine came out. People were making the same arguments that kids got vaccinated. 2 years, this bad thing happened, therefore it had to be a result of the vaccine. This is not a new argument at all. It's nothing new to deal with. It's just getting different attention because of social media. So this is kind of a constant challenge with getting people vaccinated to overcome a lot of this misinformation. There's nothing stopping anyone from saying anything about the COVID vaccine, but really trying to get the truth out there and get people to make truly an informed choice is what we're trying to do.
So if you had to estimate, I don't know if these figures are available, but per capita, there are some people I talk to that are, that say, and they don't know what they're talking about, but they say at least one person is dying from the vaccine per 1,000 people that take it. I don't believe that to be true at all. But what are the actual numbers that we know for sure have directly died from taking the vaccination? Do we even have those numbers available?
Early on, we looked at this. There were reports of every single person who was vaccinated, if there were deaths that occurred after that. They looked into those things. So there are people that got vaccinated and died after, but that doesn't mean they died because of the vaccine. And that's always the challenge, is unraveling that. If it were at rates where 1 out of 1,000 people getting the vaccine were vaccinated, this would be the highest cause of death in the country. And within days of people getting vaccinated, we see these massive die-offs. That's not happening. We are not seeing people die like that. Our concerns early on were specifically about really bad allergic reactions. And that's usually the biggest threat right away with the vaccine. You're highly allergic to one component of it, and you
Right.
wind up having an anaphylactic reaction at the doctor's office, basically. And that's why when you get your shot, you sit there in the chairs and wait for 15 or 20 minutes before they let you go, or at
Mhm.
least initially we were doing that because we were
Sure.
concerned that that reaction could happen and it would be immediate.
Right.
But we
Right.
weren't seeing even that. This vaccine was not getting those allergic reactions. We had 15 or 20 people in those early reports that had some allergic reactions, but it wasn't something that was a widespread problem or something that caused high rates of death like people are claiming.
And you make such a good claim. If somebody said, or such a great statement, where if it was 1 in 1,000, it would be the highest cause of death in this country. Obviously, that's not true. Another argument that I shouldn't even say argument that I tried to make with Peter McCullough was that isn't there overwhelming evidence that what the vaccines did do is far more good than harm? In that, if you were vaccinated, you were far less likely to go into the ICU and be hospitalized or die. Is that true? And can you give me those hard facts and statistics if you have them?
Well, there are a lot of different studies looking at the benefits of the vaccination, and that's how we make our decisions about whether we're going to use a vaccine in the first place. We look at the risk of the vaccine. We look at the problems that are going to occur because people got it. We're also going to look at the benefits. Then we have to decide what benefits we're ultimately trying to achieve. Is it simply reducing the number of deaths? Is it reducing the number of cases? Is it reducing the number of hospitalizations? The COVID vaccine, for some of the vaccine types that we've had out there, some of the viruses that were circulating, it didn't do the greatest job of preventing infection in the first place. We did see decreases in infection rate, but it wasn't massive decreases some of the time. And again, the strain has to match up with what's in the vaccine for that to even matter. That's why we've changed it. But we have seen big decreases in deaths, and we've seen big decreases in hospitalization. It's quite a challenge to figure out this stuff though, because when a person dies, you have to figure out what role COVID played in their death, when they were vaccinated, and how well the vaccine matched, all those kind of things. It's not a simple question to really answer, but there are a multitude of studies out there looking at all these things, and we've seen a reduction in death, we've seen a reduction in hospitalization. The worst parts of COVID, the COVID vaccine has absolutely blunted that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that 150%. I'm just curious. There are not a lot, but there are a select few doctors like the Peter McCulloughs of the world that I would like to think spread medical disinformation. If you had an opportunity to speak with him after watching part of that interview, what would, for somebody like you that's dedicated your entire life to this, what would you say to him?
Well, I'm not particularly interested in arguing facts with him or going through a debate. He's really good at debating these things. He knows his points very, very well. It would be challenging to actually debate somebody whose focus in life is stopping people from getting the COVID vaccine. The thing that I'm really curious about with anybody who really is against vaccination is why? What's the point? Not like why are they against this particular vaccine, but what do they ultimately want? Do they want people to stop getting vaccinated because they think there is a better way to prevent disease in the community? Do they think that vaccines are actually causing much more harm than good, and their goal is to improve society? And I ultimately think at the heart of this, we all sort of want the same thing. We want people to not get sick. We want them to live long, healthy lives. But we seem to have very different approaches to how we're going to do that. And I'm really interested in the motivation. If you think it's just a conspiracy and all that sort of stuff, then okay, I understand your motivations, and there's really nothing I can say against it. But I try to think of it as how would I reduce misinformation out of the community? How do I get more people vaccinated? And to do that, you really have to understand the motivations of the people behind it. I don't know him at all, so I couldn't say what his motivations are. But there's plenty
Well,
of anti-vaxxers out there that
yep.
have perfectly good reasons. They don't want their kids to get sick. They're worried about the danger posed by what they think is going to happen when they get vaccinated, even though that may not be true. They're doing it out of a place of they want what's right for them or their family or their kids. But then there's some people that are doing it probably for some really strange reasons I don't quite understand.
Well, doctor, you bring up a very good point there, and I agree with you. There are some that are coming from a good place. I got a guy coming on Thursday who I think is coming from the right place, even though we'll probably disagree. But I will say this about Dr. Peter McCullough. Listen, he treated me with respect. I appreciate that. But he's gained a large following on social media. He makes a lot of money to make public appearances and make speeches. He sells spike proteins. I don't know a lot about that, but he sells spike proteins on his website, and he's also hawking a book. So I think some people are motivated by money. That's, I'll let people decide from there on out. I think some people are motivated by money. I guess, Doctor, my last question for you would be this. Somebody, I would imagine you get people like this all the time coming up to you. I don't trust the vaccines. I heard by this guy, who, by the way, is not an infectious disease expert, but this guy told me, my dentist told me this heart doctor told me this. And they'll make you at least try to believe that the vaccines are extremely, extremely dangerous. What would you say to somebody like that concerned who came to you?
I've had this conversation plenty of times, and it's usually about trying to understand exactly what they're worried about, trying to understand that motivation. What are they truly concerned about? And that's what you wind up addressing, and that's the way to change people's minds. It's that one-on-one conversation. I'm worried about it because I had a family member that had this happen, and I'm worried that they will die or whatever it is. And really talking to them and trying to understand it. And usually, what I try to do is just provide them factual information and references to other places where here's where you can find that information or something like that. It's very difficult though because the average person in the public can't read scientific studies, and a single scientific study isn't enough to say this is the reality. We look at the evidence as a whole and decide as a scientific community what's going on. It may be that the vaccine works for certain groups, not other ones. There's a risk in these groups and not these. And trying to understand all of that, we can put it together in a simple package and say, yes, this is safe enough to use for the general public with these particular restrictions. But it's very difficult to give people just a bunch of facts and expect them to be convinced just by that.
I agree. And just to close here, to be fair to everybody listening, overwhelmingly, is it fair to say the vaccines, for the most part, while there's always a risk with any vaccine you take, as I'm sure we would agree, the COVID vaccines overwhelmingly are extremely safe. Is that a fair statement to make?
We have given out billions of doses of this vaccine worldwide, and it has repeatedly proven itself to be safe and effective in reducing severe COVID, reducing hospitalizations, deaths, and ultimately long COVID, because if you can prevent the initial COVID infection, you can prevent long COVID, or prevent serious disease, you can prevent long COVID. It's a safe and effective vaccine in general. Yes, there are always problems with anything. It's never perfect, but on the whole, it's a safe and effective vaccine that has really gone a long way to giving us the ability to start acting normal again in this pandemic.
Amen to that, brother. Dr. Labus, thank you so much for what you do and putting out real, credible information. It's so important for people like you to be out there. Please continue doing what you do. And thank you so much for your work, Dr. Brian Labus. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that. Dr. Brian Labus, everybody, professor at the UNLV School of Public Health, epidemiology, biostatistics. Oh, yeah. Somebody that's not hawking pills on his website, somebody that's not hawking a book. He's not going on right-wing entities and InfoWars, which has zero credibility. This is a guy who works hard because he cares and he's dedicated his life to medicine. Not some heart doctor who has a large social media following, who sells spike proteins on his website and sells a book and goes on with Alex Jones. So you tell me who the credible person was and somebody who's not as credible, and you get your information from whoever you want to get, but I'm going to get my medical information, especially when it comes to infectious disease, from somebody like Dr. Brian Labus. Be clear on that. Speaking of credibility, I talked about this with Carmine a little bit in hour number one. About these anti-Israel. That's what they are. They're anti-Jewish. They're anti-Israel. Many of them anti-Semitic. I think we all could agree on that, especially at some of these college campuses. Well, one of those people confronted Alec Baldwin at a coffee shop, and it didn't go very well. But I want you to listen to this because this is blatant harassment. I don't condone what Baldwin did at the end here. We'll get to that. But first, this crazy lunatic, and again, this isn't public at a coffee shop. We're just there to get our drink, get our coffee, get our muffin, and get out of there. And she accosted this guy, Baldwin. Have a listen to this audio, then we'll discuss.
Can you please say Free Palestine one time? Why did you kill that lady? You killed that lady and got no jail time? No jail time, Alec? So sorry. No jail time, Alec. You're putting innocent people in jail, Alec Baldwin. So sorry. Free Palestine, Alec, just one time, and I'll leave you alone. I'll leave you alone. I swear. Just say Free Palestine one time. One time. One time. One time, Alex. You know he's a criminal. You know he's a criminal. Come on, Alex. Just say free Palestine one time. One time. Just one time, please. And I'll leave you alone. Free Palestine. Israel. Zionism. Please say it. One time.
Okay, so at the end of that video, Alec Baldwin slaps the camera out of her hands. That's assault. I don't condone that behavior, but I will say I understand Baldwin's frustration. This woman is a complete idiot. She's a moron. First of all, Alec Baldwin's not proven to be a criminal. I've actually defended Alec Baldwin in this case. Clearly, it was an accident. Doesn't mean people shouldn't be held to account. People on the movie set have already been convicted. Their job is to make sure that the set is safe. You never should have a loaded gun on set unless you're a security guard. So there were obviously blatant mistakes that were made that do rise to criminality. Alec Baldwin is an actor on the set. It's not his responsibility, or at least it shouldn't be his responsibility, to make sure he's given a gun that's not loaded with real bullets. He had no idea that gun was loaded. This was a horrible accident. I feel for the family of the victim here. This is terrible. But to say that Alec Baldwin is a criminal, I just disagree. We'll see what the courts say. I disagree. And she's just accosting this guy. And then she says, she calls a Zionist and F Israel. This is a hateful woman who's trying to get her clicks on social media, and she is despicable. Unfortunately, you can't put your hands on her and throw her out of your business. The only way really to go about that is to call the police. That takes time for the police to come out there, and then they'll 86 her from the property. So that takes a lot of time. Alec Baldwin, as we know, is a guy that kind of has a short fuse. He's got some anger issues. I would imagine anywhere he goes in public, he has to deal with this stuff. That's got to be horrible, as if it's not bad enough to take someone's life that was your friend accidentally. So I can't imagine what Alec Baldwin is going through. It's got to be extremely difficult. I don't care how much money he has or how successful he is. This has got to be excruciating for him, and I believe the case is coming up in a couple months. But anybody who accosts a celebrity like that, it's one thing if you want an autograph or want a picture. That's one thing. This is something completely different. You're just harassing somebody. That's a level of harassment where nobody should have to deal with something like that. I'm not defending Alec Baldwin assaulting this woman and smacking the camera out of her hand. Alec Baldwin has to know better. He can't do that because that's what they want. They want to get you for assault. And I would also imagine it's probably extremely annoying to have the paparazzi following you everywhere. But guess what? When you're a celebrity, you have to understand that comes with the territory. It doesn't matter if you're with your family or not. When you're in public, on a public sidewalk, the paparazzi is allowed to be, no more than 6 feet away from you or more and take pictures of you in video. And Alec Baldwin is the kind of guy that not only doesn't like it, but he lashes out at members of the paparazzi. But this is different. Because I wouldn't say the paparazzi necessarily, for most of them, they do it to harass you. They do it because they want to make money off of your pictures and videos and stuff like that. This woman is despicable. She is clearly anti-Semitic and very stupid. This woman is very dumb. She's a stupid individual, that makes ridiculous comments and forcing a celebrity to say something like Free Palestine, forcing them to say something and then say, if you say it, I'll leave you alone. What are we? Are we 8 years old? This woman is despicable. And sadly, there are many people like her that are chanting horrible things on college campuses across the country. It cannot be tolerated. I understand why we have freedom of speech. I get that. But you can't be threatening people. You can't be intimidating people or calling for a genocide of a group of people. In this case, those that are in Israel. It's wrong. It's disgusting. It can't happen. This woman should also be arrested. And if Alec Baldwin is arrested for assault, which, by the way, there's no information that I've seen on social media or anywhere that shows that Alec Baldwin was arrested, that woman should be arrested for harassment. What's going on some of these college campuses is pretty bad. The level of anti-Semitism in this country is horrible. And it's getting and rising to a level now that students aren't even going to classes in person anymore. At least that's what they ruled on one college campus in New York. That's how bad it's getting now. We can't let these people win. These people need to be arrested. Just like Ilhan Omar's daughter was arrested, these people need to be arrested. And then if they do it again, it's more than just a fine. Give them a jail sentence. Okay? If you're going to chant death to America, I have a problem with that. If you're going to chant death to Jews or death to Israel, I have a problem with that as well. Just like I would have a problem with anybody saying death to Palestinians. That's also equally as bad. But these people some of them are extremely uneducated. They don't understand what's really going on in the Middle East. Some of them are pro-Hamas. And both politicians on both sides of the aisle need to call this out. It's disgusting. It's wrong. And the fact that one university in this country is saying, well, our students can't now go to their classes, we're going to do everything from home. No. If you have these anti-Israel, anti-Jewish rallies, you need to be arrested for making threats and harassment. There are people that feel unsafe. There are people that are being intimidated physically and are being threatened. They need to be arrested, and this cannot be tolerated in this country, and it needs to be called out by every prominent person with a platform. It's wrong. It's terrible. It needs to stop. And that moron in that coffee shop that was trying to antagonize, and I would level it as harassment, nobody deserves that. Alec Baldwin doesn't deserve it. Nobody deserves that. That woman is despicable, and she broke the law. Now, I don't condone Alec Baldwin putting his hands on her camera either. That's also wrong. Alec Baldwin is wrong for doing that. He has to be able to control himself. But what they should have done is they should have immediately called the police and, follow her. I don't care. Follow her as she leaves. Make sure she gets arrested for harassment, because that type of behavior cannot happen either. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I like to help people. That's what I do. I'm a giver on this show. I like to help people. Summer is right around the corner. It's getting extremely hot outside. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, how often should I check my air conditioning systems? How long before I get a maintenance check? Well, if you're listening to this show right now, I'm going to give you an opportunity to win up to a year of VIP service from Pioneer Air with scheduled maintenances. And you're going to want to listen to Leo, who's the CEO of Pioneer Air, because he's going to be joining us next. And I'm going to be asking him a lot of questions, because you certainly don't want your air conditioning system to take a crap on you when it's 120 degrees outside. So I'm doing this for all of you. We want to help you. So we'll take a quick break. Leo from Pioneer Air is going to be joining us next. And I also invite all of you, if you want to watch the remainder of the show, to follow me on my YouTube page, which is at PTL Radio Show. That's at PTL Radio Show. If you want to watch the remainder of the show and win a gift certificate up to $150 from Pioneer Air, go to my YouTube page, which is at PTL Radio Show. Subscribe to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. And please also check out my website, which is ptlradio.com, where you can email us. You can subscribe to my newsletter. A lot of cool stuff on there. You can see some of these interviews that I've done and more content. Website, ptlradio.com. I also want to thank Carmine Sabia for taking the time to join us in hour number one. And a programming note for you, former North Las Vegas mayor. He was a Democrat. He's now switched to the Republican side, and he's running against Stephen Horsford. John Lee, the former mayor of North Vegas, will be joining us in studio tomorrow. So that should be a really interesting conversation. If you want to watch the rest of the show, again, subscribe to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran, veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly